The Max Heart tournament is here, and we have a wide open field of 12 teams this year. We'll chat through the bracket, the likely winners, and we'll preview the opening night of competition. We'll also review New Year Party 2-6, where a new number one contender for the Princess of Princess title was crowned. We also have some Grand Princess news, Maki Itoh reappeared, and Fumarin is celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday, Fumarin. All that and more coming up on the Tokyo Joshi Pod. Stay tuned. Hello to all you big children out there. Konnichiwa, and welcome to the Tokyo Joshi Pod, your weekly dose of everything TJPW. I'm your host, Andy Zyke, and what a show we have on tap for today. First up, I want to say I am finally back in my typical recording setup. Thank you all for bearing with me during the holidays, during my travels. Maybe you guys didn't even notice a difference, but every time I listen to my voice back, I don't like it no matter what. But thank you very much just for bearing with me. As they say, it is always nice to travel, but it is even nicer to return home. And I believe that 100%. I am very, very excited to be back in sunny California, get back into my typical routine. I arrived back. Today is January 15th, and in California it was 77 degrees in January, and that is perfectly for me. I know a lot of you out there are like, oh, cool, 77 degrees. Wish we had that. Way to rub it in. I love, love, love warmer climate. I grew up in Florida. I obviously live out here in California now, so I am so excited to be out of the freezing cold. I can't handle it, and I am just super, super excited to be home. Anyway, enough about me. As I settle back into my routine, we have so much to catch up on. It was a big week in Joshi wrestling overall, and we'll talk about a little bit of the news, but maybe not all of it, because some of it pertains to some other companies. But as it relates to TJPW, we have some Grand Princess news to chat through, which includes a main event that is now official. There is a match graphic for it. We also have more talent announcements for Grand Princess. An alumni of TJPW, Maki Itoh, surprisingly turned up in Stardom. That was a little bit of a shock, but we'll talk a little bit about that. We also have an event to chat about, New Year Party 2-6, which brought us one heck of a tag team match and also named that number one contender. And if all of that wasn't enough, we have our annual Max Heart tournament on deck, the tag team tournament. We'll preview all 12 of the teams that are in that tournament. We'll talk through the bracket. We'll make some bracket picks as well. So let's kick things off before we dive into the tag team tournament. Let's talk about the very, very big show on the horizon, only about 2.5 months away. Grand Princess 2-6. We have a few other announcements that we can talk through. TJPW announced that Max the Impaler will be at the show. A little bit surprising for a couple of reasons. One, I assumed that Max would be on the show. They're normally on at least one of the major stadium shows, arena shows for TJPW. But I found it odd that TJPW announced Max after the elimination match took place, that 6-way elimination for the number one contender. You would think it would make sense to announce Max before the 6-person elimination match. That way, going into the match, you might say, oh, Max is scheduled for Grand Princess. Maybe they pull it out here. But not knowing that Max was scheduled, at least personally for me, it made me think, well, maybe they're not going to win and become the number one contender. Obviously, they can easily just be announced later, which they were. But I don't know. Thought it was just a little bit odd that they were announced after the elimination match took place. In other Grand Princess news, we do have our first match that was made. Actually, we have 2 matches to talk about, but the first match that was made prior to the Princess of Princess title defense and knowing who the number one contender is, TJPW announced what Yuka Sakazaki is going to be doing on the... Actually, technically, Yuka Sakazaki announced it herself in this pre-recorded message at an AEW event, but that's neither here nor there. Yuka Sakazaki will be in a tag team match alongside Konosuke Takeshita, who will be making his debut in TJPW. Now here is a sentence I thought I would never say. Konosuke Takeshita making his debut in TJPW. From what I understand, Takeshita was actually supposed to wrestle for TJPW in America back in 2020, before that America show got canceled due to the pandemic. So long journey here, but Takeshita eventually makes his way into TJPW and he teams with his wife, Yuka Sakazaki. So this is a husband and wife team. I think that this is going to be a lot of fun. The only way this can get better is if their dog is somehow involved. They have the most adorable dog if you haven't seen any of the pictures that they post on social media. They're such a cute family. And with this tag team match that the two of them are taking part in, we don't know who they're going to go up against. The TJPW just announced that Yuka and Konosuke will team together as a husband and wife team, and they're going to take on X and XX. So the rumor mill is obviously spinning abound. You would assume that this would be a man and a woman duo on the other side, or a mixed duo, I should say, on the other side. Of course, we know that there's going to be a mascot at Grand Princess, a panda bear at Grand Princess, so who knows? Um, but I've seen early rumblings that Natsupoi and Shingo Takagi will be this duo that come in since Natsupoi announced her marriage to Shingo Takagi. I would be really surprised. I think a lot would have to fall into place for Natsupoi to be able to come from Stardom and come back into TJPW. A lot of like political maneuvering, red tape, if it were. So while that would be awesome to see, I don't think that's going to happen. One possibility that I heard that I thought was actually quite high probability. I heard this from Blitzball champ Jason Ingram. Shout outs to friend of the pod, Blitzball champ. He's got a great YouTube channel. Go check it out. He does so many wrestling reviews and previews and all kinds of wrestling as well. Not just Joshi, not just TJPW. But go ahead and give him a follow. Anyway, Blitzball champ brought up the idea of Bali and Aki and Mei Saruga, the best bros. Obviously, we've seen Mei Saruga in TJPW quite often. She usually comes around for like a big cork win, a big arena show. That would be a lot of fun if they can get that duo together. I think that would be a blast. But who knows who we're going to see here? Obviously, Andreza Giant Panda has been named. Maybe it's as simple as Andreza and like Raku or something like that. Perhaps with Max the Impaler being named here, we see Max the Impaler here teaming with Palm or Raku or someone like that. Minimo-chan maybe gets involved here. Truly, the world is our oyster based on some of the announcements, so we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure it won't take too long until we know who Yuka Sakazaki and Konosuke Takeshita will be facing at Grand Princess. And in addition to that tag match, we also know the Princess of Princess title match, the main event of Grand Princess 2-6. Miyu Watanabe will defend her title, her V5 defense, against number one contender Yuki Arai. This is a first-time singles meeting between Miyu and Arai. Very interesting that this is what we're going with for our main event of what is likely to be the biggest TJPW show to date. We'll talk about that as we get there. We'll also talk about how Arai landed in this spot and a terrific elimination match. But this is our main event for Grand Princess. I know that TJPW was already selling tickets. Tickets were already moving pretty quickly based on just talent announcements alone, or just the fact that this is a very popular big time show for TJPW every year. But I do think that this will move the needle even more to see a headlining match of Miyu and Arai. Obviously, Takeshita as well is a big name that'll bring in some extra people as well. But really excited to see. We have our first two matches. We have our main event named. Let's start putting the puzzle together. Let's see now. We like I mentioned, we have Max the Impaler named, Andreza Giant Panda. If we get past some of the mascot characters, we also have Lei Ying Li announced. We also have Sari announced. Where the heck is Sari gonna fit into this card? So this is going to be an absolutely incredible show coming up at the end of March, and really, really excited that we're already starting to see some announcements and some news around what that card's gonna look like. Next up, coming out of the world of Stardom, Maki Itoh has resurfaced. Maki Itoh has resurfaced in Stardom. Little bit of a surprise. Maki made her debut here in Stardom on Saturday, January 10th. She had her first match the following day on Sunday, January 11th. Both of those shows took place at Corcoran Hall. In her debut match, Maki Itoh tagged alongside Sayori Ano, and they lost to Sayaka Kurara and Aya Sakura. And this kind of caught me a little bit by surprise. Obviously, Maki was doing some American booking. She was in Europe for a moment. She went a little bit quiet. Since leaving TJPW, she wasn't wrestling as frequently. And then Stardom started to air these vignettes where it was almost looked like a streamer or someone that was drinking energy drinks. And my first thought was someone more closely related to Stardom, like a Dakota Kai who used to be a part of Stardom way back when. I thought, oh, maybe we'll go in that direction. But Then these videos got longer and longer. We started to see a silhouette, we started to see a costume, and a lot of people started to put together the pieces and make an assumption that this was Maki Itoh, and that name started to circulate. Well, lo and behold, they were correct. Maki Itoh makes her debut in Stardom, and this is a really interesting fit. So it's worth mentioning that Maki came out with the same gimmick, doing the same shtick, flipping the bird to people, saying the F word. She had the same move set. She did the kokeshi. She did the stunner, the Maki Itoh stunner. So everything kind of mostly remains the same for Maki Itoh. Maki gave some comments as well when she was introduced. She mentioned that she was excited at the prospect of joining Stardom, company that she has never set foot in her entire 9-year career. This is a big company for a very big personality. Stardom, as much as we are a Tokyo Joshi pod here, a Tokyo Joshi Pro pod, you have to give credit where credit is due. Stardom is certainly the biggest of the Joshi companies right now in terms of attendance, in terms of name value. Obviously, TJPW is making inroads in Japan. They're making inroads in Asia, in America. But when you do look at some of the attendance numbers, Stardom is consistently running arena shows, selling out cork wins of, we talked a lot about TJPW drawing 1,500 people for January 4th. Stardom consistently draws that at all of their Corcoran Hall shows. So it is definitely a large company. It is a company that has global appeal. It definitely has some mainstream appeal in Stardom. They have the Tokyo Sports MVP kind of leading their charge in Saya Kamatani. Maki Itoh's a really big personality, though. She has her own global appeal. So it truly is, I don't want to say a match made in heaven. That kind of sounds like it was destined to be, but it truly is a nice fit. It is an interesting character fit. Maki's character lent itself really well to TJPW, and Stardom tends to be a little bit more like serious in-ring type of competition, although they do have some comedy with like Saki Kashima and whatnot. But maybe Maki comes in and she is the breath of fresh air, or not necessarily the comedic relief, because Maki Itoh can wrestle, and we saw that in her tag team match quite well. But maybe it's just a little bit more characters that come into TJPW. I don't think I would have picked Maki if you asked me to pick 5 people from TJPW that would jump ship. Like, I don't think TJPW or Maki would be one of the 5 I would choose. But there is, a past history of this. Unagi Sayaka, Mina Shirakawa, Natsupoi, Mirai all got their start in TJPW, shifted over to Stardom. I think character-wise, maybe like Mina would be the closest fit, just based on a little bit more like charisma and character work versus in-ring competition. But we'll have to see. I'm very excited for Maki. I'm very happy for Maki. In no way am I upset. I do wish she got some sort of a send-off with TJPW rather than just the announcement of the contract expiring, but it is what it is. I'm excited to follow Maki on this journey. We'll cover in the alumni section, like we do with all the other talents, we'll cover as she does anything big. So this won't be the last we'll talk about Maki Itoh, but very congratulations, I guess I should say, to Maki Itoh. Very big news that she jumped over to Stardom. And then just to round us out, 2 little quick ones here. The full bracket and all 12 teams were announced for the Max Heart tournament. I won't name them right now. I will save that for our preview section coming up in a little bit. The one thing I want to note, though, is that there is a YouTube video that was posted on the TJPW YouTube channel where they drew seeds, and they randomized this. Rise Shirai had a bunch of envelopes. She picked the envelopes at random. So for what it's worth, the seeding of the bracket is supposed to be completely random. And then to cap us off here, I do just want to wish a very happy birthday to Fumarin. Fumarin, TJPW's first female referee, first full-time female referee. Fumarin will celebrate her birthday on Saturday, January 17th. So a very happy birthday to Fumarin. All right, and with our news out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into our event review of the week. TJPW New Year Party 2-6 took place on Saturday, January 10th at the Shinjuku Face. This was live on Wrestling Universe, about 2 hours and 15 minutes in length. There were no absences on this show, and TJPW drew an attendance of 361, which they are listing as a sellout. Now, the last time TJPW ran the Shinjuku Face was just a couple of weeks ago for the year-end Party 2-5, where they drew 429. So that one they packed in a few more bodies, but again, that was the start of like the end of the year, that crazy 2 weeks of wrestling in Japan. So it makes sense why they would draw a number north of 400, but 361, still a sellout, still a strong number for Shinjuku Face. We opened up with Rise Shirai giving the opening remarks and the house rules, and then we got our Up Up Girls performance of the evening, Kawatsuyo Challenger. The first contest on the show was a singles match between Haru Kazushiro and recently debuted rookie Shion Konzaki. This was Shion's first singles match of her career, and as to be expected, this was mostly one-sided, with Haru working over Shion's arm for the majority of this match. Shion did get in a little bit of basic offense, and I'd like to note, I don't think that Shion looks awkward in any way, but she does certainly look like she recently debuted, and there's nothing wrong with that. She did recently debut, but for where she's at in her career, she looks pretty fluid. A lot of times you'll see rookies debut or trainees debut, and they just look a little bit awkward. They pause, maybe they have to move themselves into position, and I don't see a lot of that with Shion. Obviously, it's only been 2 matches, but she seems to be doing quite good. But that didn't change the outcome of this match. Unfortunately, she quickly submitted to Haru's Izayoi at 5 minutes and 24 seconds. So just a quick little 5-minute match, but that's what Shion needs right now. She needs reps under her belt. She needs singles matches. She needs to really just, you learn by doing, and practice makes perfect, right? Is the idiom. So all in all, Shion is starting her career out pretty good. She did also become a horse for a brief second in between her matches, so there's that too. And she almost she slammed Shoko on top of the plastic kaijus at the Itinyon show. So Shion certainly off to a busy start of her career. Our second contest, a three-way match, Raku took on Kaya Toribami and Chika Nanase. We got this really crazy three-way wrist lock to start us out. Raku, of course, falls asleep, so Kaya and Chika just kind of go at it, and they're wrestling around her, on top of her, really good use of the space with Raku lying directly in the middle of the ring. We then got some really nicely timed three-way offense once Raku woke up amongst all three of the competitors. This was honestly fairly even all around, which was a bit surprising to me, and also a little bit surprising to me, our winner of this match was Raku. Raku pinned Chika with a hurricane turn at 6 minutes and 11 seconds. A really nice win for Raku. It's always great to see Raku pick up a couple of wins, especially in not necessarily a singles match here, but something that isn't a tag match, a different configuration of a match. Back-to-back quick matches to start us off on this show. They certainly saved some time, as we will come to see, for the very hard-hitting tag team match, and then, of course, that elimination main event. But before we get to those 2 matches, we have a 6-woman tag up next. Mihiro Kiryu teamed with Hyper Misao and Kira Summer, quite the eclectic team, and they took on the team of Pam Harajuku and Bumping Gritters, Himawari and Shino Suzuki. Mihiro was the Iron Man title holder during this match. I believe she still is. And during Misao's pre-match mic performance, she tried to pin her own partner. She turned on her. She said that she was very upset about Mihiro pinning the Hypermobile at the January 4th show. And of course, then this leads to all 5 of these women taking turns trying to pin Mihiro before the match even starts. Literally, all 5 of these women are just kicking the crap out of her in the middle of the ring. Thought that was a kind of a funny way to get us started. When the match eventually does get underway, though, we start out with Mihiro and Shino. Usual spots, we get some usual spots like the Turnbuckle Tour Guide from Shino. We also get the Apology Knees from Mihiro. Misao comes in, has some nice exchanges with both Shino Suzuki and Palm. We see a little bit of Kira Summer and Himawari going at it that looked pretty good, and they kind of broke up their short-lived Itinyon tag team here, but really everyone in this match I thought looked pretty good. Because this is a 6-woman tag, you know where things are going. Everything breaks down. Misao hits this really nice looking ripcord knee on Palm, and then Himawari and Kira get back in the ring to finish us off, and Himawari hits the Sunflower Tempest on Kira Summer at 7 minutes and 54 seconds to pick up the victory for her team. A nice momentum-building win for the Bumping Gritters as they head into the Max Heart tournament. I think that was the design of this, but really everybody looked good. No extra shenanigans with the Iron Man title this time, so all is looking good for Mihiro in the immediate future. And then if a 6-woman tag wasn't enough, we then had an 8-woman tag. It's been a while, I think, since TJPW ran an 8-woman tag. Don't quote me on that, because I'm sure I'm just forgetting one. But 8-woman tag team match, Uber Eats, Yuki Kamifuku, and Wakana Uehara teamed with Toga and Mifu Ishida, and those 4 took on the team of Daisy Monkey, Arisu Endo, and Suzume. They teamed with Ren Kanatsu and Uda Takami. Mifu and Uda get us going. Mifu quickly invents an ice cream cheer. She gets out the pom pom. She's like, "You like ice cream, right?" She starts cheering about ice cream for Uda, and this basically leads to her entire team chanting this ice cream chant as they just bully Uda with power slam. So they would tag out, somebody would come in, power slam Uda and say the chant, tag out, the next person would come in, and they just went through the entire four members of the team just bullying Uda like this. I've never seen someone get picked on for liking ice cream before. That's such a weird form of bullying. Anyway, Uda and Wakana get quite a nice amount of face time against each other. Suzume and Kamiyu have a really nice exchange as well. With this being an 8-woman tag, though, it was really hard for anyone to get like too much of an extended look, just given like the time constraints of the match, the number of women that were in the match. Things break down here as well, and we get some really nice tag team maneuvers from Uber Eats on Uda Takami. They hit a double flapjack that looked really cool. Uda let out this like wail as she went flying through the air. It was kind of funny. Daisy Monkey comes in. They of course have excellent tag team maneuvers. They start tag teaming up on Kamiyu. They hit this really nice like power slam facebuster combination from the ropes. All of this leads to Toga and Ren Kanatsu then finishing us off, and Toga ends up submitting Ren Kanatsu with a face lock in 10 minutes and 27 seconds. A bit weird for Toga to name her rock bottom the Absolute Zero and then not use that move after naming it, but whatever. Toga does pick up a really nice win here on the way to her International Princess title challenge against Mirai, which is scheduled for February 14th. In our semi-final, we had a doozy of a tag team match. Miyu Watanabe teamed with J-Rod, her last stop before she heads back to the States. Those incredibly powerful duo took on the team of Yuki Niki, Yuki Aino, and Ryu Mizunami. Yuki Niki entered to Aniki's music. J-Rod accompanied Miyu. They came out to Miyu's music, but unfortunately she did not do the LOVE hand signals. That was a little bit unfortunate, but J-Rod did seem like she was having a good time. She had a smile on her face a couple times. She wasn't like really healing it up like the very first time we saw her. I also noticed that Aino has some short hair. I don't know if she had that at Itinyon at Korakuen. I might have missed that. But Yuki now has a little bit of like shorter hair. It's still red, reddish pink. But Yuki, new haircut. Watanabe and Aino start us out, and neither one is budging with these really stiff shoulder tackles, so they end up tagging out to J-Rod and Aniki. Really crazy to see those two face off against each other. Never would have dreamed that we would see that. Neither of those two give an inch either, though. Aniki eventually is able to take J-Rod down, tags in Aino. Somehow or other, though, J-Rod is able to get the upper hand back, tags Miyu in to kind of continue this assault against Yuki Aino. Aino eventually able to fight back against J-Rod and Miyu, though, so you can get this sense that this match was pretty even, as one team would go on the attack, and then the other team would kind of slowly crawl their way back. We'd get a tag, and then they would go on the attack and kind of trade back and forth this way. We did get a face-off between Aniki and Miyu. That was kind of interesting to see, too. We haven't seen them fight each other, at least not in a singles contest. I believe it was either Summer Sun Princess 2-4 or maybe it was Wrestle Princess 5. I think it was Wrestle Princess 5 when it was Wrestle Princess 5 because Aniki won the Tokyo Princess Cup and then went on to challenge against Miyu. Anyway, Aniki gets the quick upper hand here, lands the machine gun chops on Miyu, and I'm not kidding, she must have hit like 100 of these. She kept going and going. She slowed down at one point. She sped back up. The crowd was like clapping along to the speed. I mean, Miyu, I have to imagine, Miyu is the pink Up Girls member, right? I have to imagine she doesn't need pink gear anymore. She herself will just be pink after the number of chops that she took from Aniki. Somehow or other, Miyu is able to battle back. We get a few more powerful pairings of J-Rod and Aniki, J-Rod and Aino, Miyu and Aino. Things kind of break down as we get towards the end of this match. All women are on the outside of the ring brawling. The ref, though, very, very generous with his 10 count. I think like 2 or 3 minutes go by, or excuse me, his 20 count. Only 2 or 3 minutes go by and he only gets to 10. So very generous refereeing. Back in the ring, the chaos is still continuing. All four women just like slapping into each other is the best way I could describe it. Rise Shirai is like screaming, telling people to watch out as they were outside of the ring, coming back in. She calls out that there's only 1 minute left. It was like a really like chaotic moment in the match. Miyu hits a laser beam on Yuki Aino. Aino hits a Venus DDT onto Miyu, who kicks out at 2, and then they lock back up again, and then the bell rings. We ultimately get a 20-minute time limit draw. Kind of a rare thing for TJPW. We don't get time limit draws too often unless we're doing something like the year-end party show where there's like 8,000 singles matches and they have to have like a very specific amount of time. And so like we saw a couple of 7-minute time limit draws on that year-end show. But usually for a match like this, a semifinal or a main event that's got like 20 to 30 minutes to its name, we really don't see a lot of draws. So I really like when TJPW kind of busts these out because you get time limit draws in so many other Japanese wrestling companies. It feels like it means more in TJPW once they do pull it out. The match, though, heck of a lot of fun. Obviously, J-Rod very new in her career. I thought J-Rod looked really great here, though. Miyu obviously looked great. Aino's great. Aniki's great. This is a hard-hitting match. Definitely worth your time if you want to see just 4 meaty women going at it. Also very worth your time, our main event, a 6-way elimination Princess of Princess title #1 contenders match. Our 6 competitors that entered into this were Miyu Yamashita, Rika Tatsumi, Shoko Nakajima, Yuki Arai, Max the Impaler, and Mizuki. It was announced that this elimination will not be done Battle Royal style, so you do have to either pin or submit one of these other competitors in order to eliminate them from the match. There is no over the top rope. And of course, it was announced that the winner goes on to face Miyu Watanabe at Grand Princess 2-6. Everyone takes turns trying to just bring Max down to start us out, which is actually a really smart strategy. 5-on-1, eliminate the Impaler, right? Max, though, is able to overpower everyone. Not surprising. They have absolutely incredible strength. They are an Impaler, after all. Somehow Yamashita is able to kick them out of the ring, though. We get this like interesting 3-way chain wrestling between Yuki Arai, Yamashita, and Nakajima, and then bodies just begin flying all over the place with the remaining 5 women, double, triple teaming each other, different like pairings that we would see, short-lived tag teams. Really great choreography though. We somehow find ourselves in this like crazy submission train that gets broken up by a returning Max who comes in and just clears house, and they just start manhandling all of these smaller women. Shoko and Rika team up to take on Max. Rika ends up choking them out of the ring, like literally just chokes Max and just pushes her outside of the ring. That allows Nakajima to attempt a tope suicida, but Max catches her. Incredible. I mean, Max is very strong, obviously, especially Max is just like a taller, stronger competitor compared to some of these women in TJPW, but still impressive nonetheless. That, though, Mizuki ends up jumping off the top rope and hits a crossbody onto both Shoko, who's being held by Max, lands this crossbody to the floor. Back in the ring, Max is able to catch a second Mizuki diving crossbody, and then the women all team up on Max once again. Max kind of like climbed the turnbuckle with someone on her shoulders, then they all just kind of got together, really tried to take them down, and eventually they do. A diving senton from Shoko Nakajima eliminates Max the Impaler at 6 minutes and 17 seconds. I was a bit surprised and then also kind of not surprised to see Max be the first elimination. Obviously, when you look at the graphic for this match, you know, Max kind of gives off like one of these things that's not like the other vibes in the sense that they were not announced for Grand Princess. They are not a contracted TJPW wrestler, right? So like on paper, it makes sense that Max is the first one out, but I really did think Max was like a dark horse here to go to Grand Princess and face off against Miyu. Miyu and Max have never faced in a singles competition one-on-one. I thought that would have been a lot of fun, but alas, Max is eliminated here. Following that elimination, Mizuki and Arai have this really nice extended sequence before Rika Tatsumi jumps in to try to help out Mizuki, which I thought was kind of fun. Rika never really learns her lesson. She just has that crush on Mizuki. She's going to help her out no matter how she's treated. Of course, Mizuki takes out both of those ladies with a diving double foot stomp in the corner. Looked really cool. We get a really fast flurry of moves, which includes a whirling candy. You know it's a big show. You know a lot's on the line when Mizuki whips out the whirling candy. Eventually, though, Rika hits a missile hip on Mizuki. Shoko is right there to roll her up and eliminate Mizuki at 10 minutes and 55 seconds. Shoko starting this out strong. First 2 eliminations to her name. Shoko and Tatsumi then have a really nice back and forth. Rika locks in a White Dragon sleeper, which she beautifully transitions into a reverse twist of fate. That eliminates Nakajima at 12 minutes and 25 seconds. So we are down to Yuki Arai, Rika Tatsumi, and Miyu Yamashita, who have this really nice stare down, which leads to Rika and Miyu having quite a prolonged exchange with each other, and it looked really, really great. Miyu hits this avalanche attitude adjustment, then a skull kick, and a crash rabbit heat. So like 3 for 3 back to back to back. All of those maneuvers eliminate Rika at 19 minutes and 30 seconds. So we're down to Arai and Yamashita. They have a really stiff exchange of like kicks and forearms and punches. Arai hits a finally and a full Nelson Buster, but she's just too worn out to cover Yamashita. They both have been in the ring now for over 20 minutes, so she's not able to take advantage. We have a second finally is set up, but Miyu is able to dodge that. Miyu then hits an attitude adjustment on Arai, which only gets 2. Yamashita lines up for a running skull kick in the corner, which connects. She goes for a second skull kick in the middle of the ring, but that is blocked by Arai. Arai is somehow able to lock in the Scorpion Deathlock, really wrenches it in. She is like all the way deep down. She is leaning backwards. It looked really gnarly. And shockingly, Yamashita taps out at 24 minutes and 17 seconds. Absolutely huge win for Yuki Arai. After this match is over, Arai calls out Miyu Watanabe. They exchange excitement over the upcoming Ryogoku Kokugikan show, the Grand Princess show. They take a bit of a commemorative picture since this will be a first-time singles meeting between the two of them. Arai then closes out the show with the audience. There were some backstage comments as well from both parties. Arai expressed her excitement for the first-time singles meeting and for having this big stage match at Ryogoku, or having this match on the big stage of Ryogoku. Miyu also expressed some excitement for that match, but mentioned that she really truly doesn't know Arai as a singles wrestler just yet. She doesn't know her level of love for TJPW, but she's really looking forward to finding all of that out in the preview matches and getting to know Arai on another level. A couple of things kind of come to my mind here having watched this match. First of all, I thought the match was really well constructed. I thought that basically all 6 competitors had a lot of creativity in what they were doing. The timing was really well executed. It seemed very fluid. Somebody would jump in here, somebody would jump in there, 2 people would team up over here, then we'd have all 5 against Max. Like, the choreography was just really, really well done. You really thought that any of these 6 competitors could have pulled out the victory. The other thing I want to say is I want to jump us back to the year-end party, because I knew it. I knew they were planting seeds for something at that year-end party show where we saw Yamashita like basically squash Yuki Arai in a singles match that just went like a minute and 5 seconds. That was so fishy to me. Like, why would you just dominate Yuki Arai, who is someone who is quite a big in-name competitor? Well, now it kind of clicks into place, right? Yamashita back in December looks absolutely dominant against Yuki Arai and says, you know what, Arai, you're not there yet. You're not ready. And Arai is just frustrated by that and says, you know what, I'm not there yet. Jump to this show here, and you have Arai basically taking it to another level, lasting 5 minutes solo with Yamashita in the ring, 24 minutes overall in this match, to overcome that huge mountain that is Yamashita and become the number 1 contender for the main title. So I guess this is like the payoff to that 1 minute singles match. You build up Yamashita, you make her look insurmountable, especially to Yuki Arai, and then you have Yuki overcome such an insurmountable mountain. That sets her up beautifully to be the number 1 contender for what is to be the biggest show of the year, probably the biggest show to date for TJPW. So what a way to very quickly like knock Arai down, but then paint her into this picture of being, very, very strong, a very worthy competitor to overcome someone like the leader, Miyu Yamashita. All that being said, when they did announce the participants, I did think that Arai was someone who had strong chances of winning. I think it sets up a really intriguing first-time singles match in the main event of this very, very big show. It's also worth remembering here that Yuki Arai has mainstream crossover appeal. She was a former idol for SKE48, no longer is, but definitely has ties to that world. People know who she is outside of wrestling. People from the idol world, people that follow idols. There's mainstream appeal there. I don't know, I kind of think of like very different type of mainstream appeal, but Fuwa-chan just made her re-debut in Stardom, right? And I think Fuwa-chan probably has maybe millions of followers, probably more than Arai, but similar in concept, right? Here you have someone with mainstream popularity that is brought into a major show. In Fuwachan's case, it was the Stardom Dream Queendom show. Definitely boosted sales, definitely boosted eyeballs, social media traction, whatever it is. I think Arai kind of does something somewhat similar, maybe not to the same extent, but somewhat similar for TJPW. So all that said, I think it is a smart move. I'm intrigued to see this first time singles match. It's kind of surprising that they haven't met first time singles or they haven't met in a singles match before. But I'm really intrigued to see that, and I do think it's going to draw in even more eyeballs to this very, very big show that Tej is planning. Overall, New Year Party, bit of a newsworthy show with that number one contenders, but pretty solid wrestling top to bottom, I would say. Lots of momentum got built here. Toga, Arai, the Max Heart tag team started to get some momentum as well. So I don't want to say like a stepping stone show. That doesn't sound right because there was this very newsworthy main event. But it was a nice like appetizer, if you will, to the Max Heart and some of the stuff that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of months. Speaking of the Max Heart, let's go ahead and dive into our tournament preview, and then we'll also preview night one as well. But we'll start off with the 2026 Max Heart tournament. I believe this is the sixth one, if I'm not mistaken, the sixth Max Heart tournament. They don't number them, they typically just go based on the year, though. We have 12 teams entered. Also worth noting, this is a single elimination tournament. So if you're unfamiliar with this, it's a 12-team bracket, single elimination. 4 teams are going to get buys based on the configuration. Apparently, the buys were chosen at random on that YouTube video. The dates of this tournament, it's going to kick off on January 17th and it will run through February 14th. So just under a month's time. I think it's like 4 shows in total. The 12 teams that will be entered into this tournament are as follows. I'm going to mention how many times they have been in the tournament, if they've won, or how far along they've gotten in the past. But first team is Daisy Monkey, Arisu Endo, and Suzume. This is their 5th time entering the Max Heart tournament together. They actually won this tournament back in 2024. We'll also see Kiraku Kiyome. Kiraku Kiyome will be entering together. Shoko Nakajima and Hyper Misao consist of that team. They will be entering their 6th time here in this tournament. They're the only tag team to have entered into all of the Max Heart tournaments. And they're last year's winners. They won in 2025. They went on to then win the Princess Tag Team titles. I suppose I should also mention, if you're a little bit unfamiliar with the tournament, that whoever wins this typically goes on to that big Grand Princess show and issues a challenge for the tag team titles. The third team we have here is Miyu Yamashita and Kaya Toribami. They don't have a team name yet, but I'm sure we're pretty close to that because they've been teaming quite a bit. They hold those IWA Japan setup tag titles, which I don't think mean too much as it relates to TJPW, but obviously within setup or within the IWA shows that are run, they do carry the belts with them throughout TJPW. Their recently formed team, really just last year, once Yamashita had to seek out a new tag team partner after Maki Itoh departed, she landed on Kaya Toribami, so this will be their first time entering this tournament together at least. It is worth noting that Yamashita did win this tournament back in 2023, obviously not with Toribami, but Miyu won this in 2023 with her 1-2 million tag partner Maki Itoh. So Kaya does have a little bit of experience on her side here as she heads into this. We will also have the team Prism Greed, Yuki Aino and Haru Kazushiro. They just formed towards the end of last year, so this will be their first tournament together. We'll see the pairing of Chika Nanase and Kira Summer. From what I understand, they are best friends IRL, or at least very good friends in real life. This will be their first time coming together to team in this tournament. An interesting pairing is Mizuki and Uda Takami. I don't really know like how they would cross paths when you think about this like in storyline terms in kayfabe. Like how would these two decide to get together? Just maybe because they're small, bendy, squealy type talent. I don't know. But with that said, this will be their first time together teaming in the Max Heart tournament. We will have Daydream, Miyu Watanabe, and Rika Tatsumi. They are entering for their 5th time together. They actually won this tournament back in 2022. I will note it is exceptionally rare for someone in TJPW to pull double duty. And the reason I say that is because Miyu Watanabe is scheduled for the main event of Grand Princess to defend her title against Yuki Arai. It would be highly unlikely that Daydream wins this and then challenges at that same show together. maybe they would challenge ahead of time, but all that being said, I don't think the Daydream's going to make it far, but we'll talk about the bracket in just a moment. We have another kind of thrown together team. Raku and Ren Kanatsu will team up, so a team of sheep and sleep. Maybe that could be the team name. I don't know. First time teaming together in this tournament for those two. We will also get the reunion of Palm Paler, Max the Impaler, and Palm Harajuku. I'm very excited for that. This is their second tournament together. They actually were the runner-up last year. They made it all the way to the finals in 2025 and then lost out to Kyoraku Kiyome, so they have some experience on their side. The current tag team champions will enter into this as well. Uber Eats, Wakana Uehara, and Yuki Kamifuku. This is their second tournament together. They did enter into last year's tournament. That was kind of where Uber Eats was born, if you will. Last year, they ended up losing in the semifinals to Palm Paler. So Palm Paler defeated Uber Eats, then went on to the finals to lose to Kyoraku Kiyome. On the other side of that bracket in 2025 was Bumping Gritters, Shino Suzuki and Himawari. They will be entering together as well into this tournament, their second tournament together. They were not called Bumping Gritters. That was something that came about just towards the end of last year, but they did lose in the 2025 semifinals to Kyoraku Kiyome. So all four of our final four teams from 2025 are represented here. Bumping Gritters, Uber Eats, Kyoraku Kiyome, and Palm Paler. And then our final team that is a little bit of a thrown together team as well. Yuki Arai and Mifu Ishida will team together. This is their first tournament teaming together. I think they are both from Kyoto. I think that's kind of how it's being explained. But nonetheless, the same thing here I think applies to Yuki Arai, who is challenging at Grand Princess in that main event. I think it would be highly unlikely that she would also then challenge for the tag titles on that same show. But again, they could win and challenge ahead of time, but I don't know, food for thought. There's only 3 competitors from TJPW who will not be taking place in this tournament, or taking part in this tournament, I should say, and that is the recently debuted Shion Konzaki, Toga, who will be challenging for the International Princess title the same day that the finals are taking place, 2/14, February 14th, and then also Mihiro Kiryu is not in this tournament. She will be defending her DDT Ironman title on that February 14th show against Aja Kong. Now, as we turn our attention to the bracket of the Max Heart tournament, actually the first thing I notice is that they do say the Max Heart tournament 6, so I guess they do number them after all. But looking at the bracket, as I mentioned, we have 4 teams that get a bye. Daisy Monkey, Prism Greed, Daydream, and Uber Eats will all get byes. And again, this was done at random. You can go ahead and watch the video. Rise Shirai, the video is on the TJPW YouTube channel. Rise Shirai has all these 12 envelopes. She shuffles them up. She picks them at random. Who is really to say if TJPW or Rise Shirai know the order of the envelopes or whatnot? Obviously, there's different name cards in there, so you can't, say multiple. You can't have multiple names, right? There's nothing like that. So potentially, this is truly random, which I think would be make this a lot more fun. I'm going to choose to believe that it is truly random. This is typically how TJPW does like all of their tournaments. So they do these random drawings. So I'm going to assume that this is just, TJPW sees how the bracket aligns and then they book from there, which I think is kind of cool to kind of leave it up to chance, right? And then be presented with this puzzle and say, okay, how are we going to get to the finals? So I think that's kind of neat. So looking at the bracket, I do want to make some picks, and you can find this bracket. It's on the TJPW website. It's on the TJPW social handles as well. I'm sure you'll be seeing quite a bit of it as well as we head into this tournament and through this tournament. But I want to make some predictions here. I will start from the upper left quadrant of the bracket, the one that has Daisy Monkey with the bye. I'm going to go ahead and pick an upset right off the bat here. I'm going to take Miyu Yamashita and Kaya Toribami, upsetting last year's champions, Kyoraku Kiyome. And then looking at the bottom left quadrant, I'm going to go with the first round match here, Chika and Kira against Mizuki and Uda. I'm going to say Mizuki and Uda pull that one out, just Mizuki having more experience. Uda's been on a heck of a roll as well. I think Mizuki and Uda kind of pull that one out and head on in. Looking at the upper right quadrant now, with Daydream getting the bye there. The first round match is Raku and Ren taking on Palm Paler. To me, Palm Paler is going to win that one fairly easily. And then in the bottom right quadrant with Uber Eats in the bye, we have Bumping Gritters taking on Mifu Ishida and Yuki Arai. I think Bumping Gritters pulls that one out just based on the fact that they are more of an established tag team. So then jumping back over to the upper left, we'll have Daisy Monkey taking on Miyu Yamashita and Kaya Toribami. I'm going to keep the hot hand rolling here. I'm going to say that Miyu and Kaya upset Daisy Monkey. I know that might be a hard pick to take here, but Suzume and Arisu have really shown themselves as singles wrestlers over the past few years, and while they do work really well together as a tag team, I just don't know if another tag team title run is in their future. Maybe it is. Maybe that is kind of the bone that TJPW throws them after they both kind of left that title picture, right? I mean, Suzume lost her challenge at Itanyon, Arisu lost her belt at Itanyon, so maybe this is the direction that we go in, but I'm going to pick the spicier one and go with Miyu and Kaya, picking that upset going into the semifinals. And then in the lower left, I have Prism Greed over Mizuki and Uda. Again, just rolling with a team that's a little bit more established. In the upper right, Daydream taking on Pom Paler. I'm going to go with Pom Paler. Pom Paler had a heck of a run last year. You have Max the Impaler scheduled all the way through the 14th. They're coming back for Grand Princess. Why not make the most use out of them? Why, I see no reason why Max should just be thrown into random tag matches if they fall out of this tournament, if Pom Paler falls out. So I'm going to roll with the hot hand and send Pom Paler on through. And then in the bottom right, I have Uber Eats taking on Bumping Gritters, a bit of a rematch from a recent title challenge. I'm going to go with Uber Eats. I think Uber Eats can overcome Himori and Shino quite easily once again. So then in my semifinals, I have Miyu Yamashita and Kaya Toribami taking on Prism Greed on the left-hand side of the bracket. And then on the right-hand side, I have Pom Paler taking on Uber Eats. I think that Miyu and Kaya continue their trek here. They overcome Aino and Haru, Prism Greed, and I'm going to take Yamashita and Toribami heading on into the finals, and I'm going to pair them up against Pom Paler. I think it would be odd if Uber Eats makes it to the finals or wins this tournament, just because usually the existing tag team champions do not win. A lot of times the existing tag team champions aren't even in the tournament. So I would be surprised if they do win. I think should they win, they would just nominate somebody, but I'm going to go with Pom Paler. So that will set up my finals here is going to be Miyu Yamashita and Kaya Toribami taking on Pom Paler. What a heck of a match that would be. Pom Paler making it to the finals back-to-back years. I don't see them winning, though, unfortunately. As much as I love the team of Pom Paler, I'm going to ride with this dark horse team, this underdog team, Miyu Yamashita and Kaya Toribami. They have been featured so much recently together, really dating all the way back to last fall, maybe even towards the late summer. They do hold those IWA Japan setup belts. I don't know. I think that they could pull it out here. We get some fresh faces in the tag team division at the big show of the year. They're going to be my pick. The one thing that kind of holds me back, I'm not going to, wishy-wash this pick at all, but the one thing that does kind of hold me back is I've seen a lot of chatter online that people would love to see Miyu Yamashita have a special singles match at Grand Princess and take on Sari. I mean, that would be incredible, and it's really possible we go in that direction as TJPW looks to build out this massive card for this big show. But I'm going to roll the dice here. I'm going to say Yamashita and Toribami win this Max Heart tournament. That said, though, this field is wide open this year. I really do think that anybody can win this. Even some of these thrown together teams, like I see a world where Mizuki and Uda go really far. I see a world where the established teams like a Kyoraku Kiyome goes really far. Maybe this is the first year where we get somebody to win the tournament twice. No team has ever won this tournament twice. In fact, no individual has ever won this tournament twice. So if Yamashita does move on, she will be the first person to do it twice. Kyoraku Kiyome, right? Daisy Monkey, Daydream. Truly a wide open tournament. I would love to hear who you guys are thinking is going to win this. Send us a tweet, send us an email. We'll have all of that at the end of the show and in the show notes. But this is going to be a really fun tournament. And this will all kick off on Saturday, January 17th from the Yokohama Radiant Hall. And this show will be live on Wrestle Universe, our typical start time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the 16th. There's no name to this show. They're just calling this the Max Heart Tournament 2026 Night 1 or Tag 1, if you will. We will have 4 first-round matchups from the Max Heart Tournament. Bumping Gritters will take on Yuki Arai and Mifu Ishida. I have Bumping Gritters in that one. We will have Pom Paler taking on Raku and Ren Kanatsu. I got Pom Paler in that one. Chika and Kira will take on Mizuki and Uda Takami. I'm going to have Mizuki and Uda in that one. And then our last first round match will be Kyoraku Kiyome taking on Yamashita and Kaya. Of course, I have Yamashita and Kaya moving on there. In addition to those 4 first round matches, though, we have 2 6-woman tags on this show as well, just to kind of breathe in a little bit of different life into this event. Our first 6-woman tag will have Daydream, Miyu Watanabe, and Rika Tatsumi will team with Sarah Phoenix. Remember, Sarah Phoenix will have a brief stint with TJPW. She's wrestling out of Chile. And Sarah Phoenix I imagine TJPW brought her in knowing that like a lot of people will be in the Max Heart tournament, so they needed some extra bodies. I know that I watched the Chile match that they had TJPW back in like early 2025, but I'd be lying if I say I remember anything about Sarah Phoenix. That's not because she was good or bad or anything like that. It was about a year ago now, but I am looking forward to seeing kind of how she mixes it up with an established team like Daydream. Those 3 are going to take on Uber Eats and Toga, so some stiff competition for Sarah getting thrown right into the mix here. In our other 6-woman tag, we'll see Prism Greed team with Mihiro Kiryu. They will take on Daisy Monkey and Shion Konzaki. So Shion's really teaming with some heavy hitters here in Daisy Monkey. I think that's going to be a heck of a match too. So we're going to kick off this tournament with a bang. 4 first round matches, 2 really intriguing 6-woman tags. Again, Saturday, January 17th, it will be live on Wrestle Universe. I would like to just briefly talk about some graduates, some excursions. I know we kind of spoke about a lot of them throughout this episode already, but the 2 that I do want to call out, Maki Itoh. Like I mentioned, Maki Itoh debuting in Stardom. We talked at length about that earlier in the show. I'm looking forward to continuing following her career in Stardom to see how she adapts, maybe how she grows as a competitor. And like I said, we will definitely be checking in on Maki as she has big matches. I think her first singles match is set for, I want to say it's February 7th, if I'm not mistaken, and she's taking on Aya Sakura. So I'm really curious to see Maki on the big stage, the tournament, or not the tournament, the arena stage. I'm trying to say, and then facing off against a competitor like Aya Sakura. We're gonna get a lot of fresh matchups, a lot of fresh faces from Maki. So looking forward to following her along with her career. And then I believe I mentioned it earlier as well, but I wanted to shout out Natsupoi. Natsupoi and Shingo Takagi announced that they were married. Really interesting story. Natsupoi, I was about to say Natsumi Maki. Natsupoi has been in Stardom for the last few years, quite a while actually. And I think Natsupoi just hit her 10-year wrestling anniversary last year. But this kind of came out of nowhere. And at first, when you look at the picture, I did think that they were a bit of an odd couple. But more power to them, to each their own. You love who you love, right? And if they love each other, that's wonderful. But I do love how this kind of came together. Natsupoi mentioned that Shingo Takagi came to a Stardom show to promote his anniversary show or his produce show, and she was just smitten with him like right off the bat. It was like a love at first sight thing, and she claims that she pursued him aggressively. I don't really know what that looks like, but we know Natsupoi can be pretty aggressive in a ring, so who knows what that could look like. But apparently asked for his phone number, called him all the time, and basically said that like he was oblivious at first, which I also think is kind of funny, but typical guy, right? Completely oblivious when someone's that into you. But congratulations to both Shingo Takagi and Natsupoi. They're a cute couple. I'm really glad that they seem kind of really happy in the photos that have come out. And interesting wrestling couple. Will they face off against Yuka and Takeshita? We'll just have to wait and see. But congratulations to Natsupoi and Takagi. And on the excursions side of things, only one thing I want to just kind of remind everybody about. January 15th, so that's the date I'm recording this. That will be the day prior to when this show actually releases. But there is a DDT event taking place with some TJPW talent on it. Aja Kong will tag with Yuki Kamifuku, and they'll take on Chika Nanase and Shoko Nakajima. So that'll be a little bit of an interesting match. I assume that will be a part of Wrestle Universe. A lot of the DDT events are streamed on Wrestle Universe, but January 15th, I forget what the name of the show was called, but it's a DDT event. Aja Kong and Kamiyu taking on Chika and Shoko. And that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. A bit of a shorter one, but we did cram in quite a lot in this one, so I'm definitely going to need my cold spray and my ice packs. Next week, we're going to review the opening round of the Max Heart tournament, and let's see how much my bracket is busted. I have a bit of an inkling that it will be pretty busted, but we'll also preview Night 2, which will be happening the following weekend, and we'll see if there's any new announcements made for Grand Princess. Maybe we'll get a couple of matches or whatnot. I hope you enjoyed the show today. If you did, you could subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can follow us at Tokyo Joshi Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and X. If you want to email us as well, send over your brackets. I'd love to see them. You can email us tokyojoshipod@gmail.com. But above all else, remember to keep your hearts burning, stay magical, my friends, and we'll see you next week on the Tokyo Joshi Pod.